The Mu-Abin were an echidnodermate species from the planet Mu-Ab in the dwarf galaxy Helios. They were akin to starfish, with spiny, orange-colored skin that was covered in sensitive nodules. Like real starfish, they were radially symmetric, with 5 limbs arranged around a central body core. Their heads, which extended from their cores, were dominated by 2 large blue eyes and a wide mouth surrounded by 5 small tentacles. The Mu-Abin were an inventive and creatively inclined species, and their society was divided into 2 groups called the Kalomnad and the Isandun, who were dedicated to a particular craft. The Kalomnad were architects, builders, and engineers, while the Isandun were artists, poets, and storytellers. Both groups were held in high regard, and they worked together for the advancement and well-being of their whole race. The Mu-Abin's biggest contribution to the greater galaxy was their robots. They designed 3 unique and highly advanced types of robot, each of which was fully sapient. These robotic species, yes, species, were the Kitact, the Cabel, and the Silentium. The Cabel, who were built during the Cosmic Wars, were planet-sized metal spheres with nigh impenetrable hulls. They would travel from planet to planet and invite explorers into their interiors, which were filled with dizzying mazes, complex locks, and mind-straining puzzles that were designed not to test the intelligence of the explorers, but rather to test their moral character. The Kitact were pot-bellied humanoid robots that had friendlier and cuter designs compared to the rather intimidating Cabel. They were designed to be guardians, caretakers, and playmates of children. By far the best known of the Mu-Abin's robot offspring were the Silentium, who were made in the image of the Mu-Abin themselves. Like their creators, the Silentium were radially symmetric, starfish-like, and had 5 flexible limbs, each ending in a wiry hand. However, while the Mu-Abin had heads and 2 eyes, the Silentium only had a single photoreceptor in their cores, which let off a constant red glow. When the War of the Temporal Planes, the second of the Cosmic Wars, broke out, the Mu-Abin and the Silentium took different approaches to the issue of war. The Mu-Abin joined the Resolute, a faction of species, races, and civilizations who pledged loyalty to the Celestials and swore off violence, instead focusing on defense, aid, and relief. The Silentium, on the other hand, believed that they should fight, and so they did. At first, the Mu-Abin let the Silentium do their thing, but then they learned that their offspring were doing something very dangerous. At the request of a being called Orax the Crystal Rider, the Silentium had started constructing their own robot creations, which they called the Metatrons, who would be powered by trapped beings called shadow demons. The Mu-Abin understandably didn't want their beloved offspring to play around with demons, even trapped ones, so they urged the Silentium to stop the Metatron project. They did, but it was too late. The Metatrons came to life on their own and started building themselves until they were giant, misshapen mechanical monsters called the Abominor. While the Mu-Abin and the Silentium valued beauty, order, symmetry, and harmony, the Abominor reveled in ugliness, madness, chaos, and destruction. They ravaged world after world, striking fear into all who were unfortunate enough to cross their paths. The Great Heap, a monstrous droid who would go on to nearly drain the life of the planet Baitu during the time of the Empire, was an Abominor, as was the infamous Sinistar. The Abominor eventually set their sights on the Mu-Abin themselves, determined to wipe them out once and for all. The leader of the Abominor, Nar-Jaggoth, hurled himself into the star Mu-Abin, which was the sun of the Mu-Ab system. The star went supernova, destroying Nar-Jaggoth and consuming Mu-Ab in an inferno of nuclear fire. However, the Mu-Abin did not die with their planet. Nar-Jaggoth had failed to account for the Celestials, who repaid the Mu-Abin's loyalty to them by spiriting the entire population of Mu-Ab away to the unseen realm of Elysia, where they would live on in peace. Even the wildlife was saved. Although the Mu-Abin were no more, their memory would live on in their robots, especially the Silentium, who continued to war with the Abominor until there were only a few left in the galaxies. The Silentium-Abominor War would eventually give rise to the Yuuzhan Vong, who would go on to invade the galaxy. But that's another story, and will be told another time. The Mu-Abin first appeared by name in the first edition of Star Wars Supernatural Encounters by Joe Bongiorno, which was published on Joe Bongiorno's website, StarWarsTimelines.net, in 2019. They were designed to give a name and description for the previously unnamed creators of the Silentium, who first appeared in the form of Vuffi-Ra, Lando Calrissian's droid companion, in Lando Calrissian and the Mind Harp of Sharu. I did say that book was very important to the early Star Wars Expanded Universe, didn't I? Their name was a tribute to L. Frank Baum, the author of the Oz books, whose creation, Tic-Toc, from the 1907 book Ozma of Oz, is widely considered to be the first robot in popular culture, predating the word robot by 13 years. The Mu-Abin themselves were rather tricky for me to design, and it took me several tries before I finally figured out a design that I liked, which still matched their description in Supernatural Encounters. For the final design, I decided to run with the starfish motif and take inspiration from several other deep-sea creatures. The head and neck were inspired by the mouths of predatory tunicates, while the eyes were inspired by the eyes of the slender blacksmelt. Here's my illustration of the Mu-Abin, depicting a group of them interacting with one of their Silentium creations. To illustrate the relationship between the Silentium and the Mu-Abin, I took inspiration from Michelangelo's Creation of Adam. The Mu-Abin were a fun species to draw, and I really had to stretch my imagination to figure them out. I'm very proud of this final piece, and as usual, I hope all of you like it too. Peace out, and may the Force be with you.